Hey there, welcome to the Mile High Church podcast. If you're looking to improve a relationship, whether it's to improve one you're already in or to draw a new relationship to you, our Mile High Church practitioners are offering complimentary one-on-one sessions during the month of February to support you in all areas of relationships. Visit milehighchurch.org for details.
Good morning. So good to have some people here and the prospects of more and more people in the future being here. That's such a beautiful thing. It's been very odd, as I know I speak for the other of my colleagues, to be doing so many talks to a camera, but sensing your presence and sensing that we could still reach into each other's hearts. So it's wonderful to be here. I welcome all of you here, and my love is with all of you watching, and I look forward to the time when we can be together and maybe even hug together at some point. Before I launch into my message, and for anybody keeping score, this doesn't count against my time for the message. I just want you to know that. I want to talk to you all about something that matters a lot to me, and that is the Mile High Church Foundation. Now, let me give you a little background. The Mile High Church Foundation was begun in 1983. We were at the time seeking to double the acreage on our campus. And so that was one of the vehicles by which people could contribute. And then in recent years, the foundation has received a lot more emphasis. So it's growing. I'm very, very excited about that. The purpose of the foundation is to build an endowment for our beloved Mile High Church, so that it has a stable footing for generations to come. All right, and it's a very beautiful thing that we are doing. It is overseen by a very effective, very dedicated board who seeks to grow the principle of this endowment, and whatever income it creates is available to leadership here for special projects and special needs. So it's a beautiful thing. And the Nautilus Society was formed a number of years ago as a means for people to get involved and an opportunity for them to support the growth of this endowment either while they're alive or through their estates. And I'm pleased to say my mother, Roger Teel, was the very first Nautilus member. And Erica and I are delighted to be Nautilus members as well. So I have exciting news for you that all of this work by so many of the past foundation boards, and I thank every one of you who've been on that board and served with such enthusiasm. The work has grown. And I'm excited to share that right now the endowment fund sits at over $2.5 million to ensure and support the future of Mile High Church. And isn't that fantastic? It is just fantastic. Now, I guess that there's kind of a shortage of talent around, so the board of the foundation has asked me to get involved and to serve as chairman of the foundation. Now, this is a volunteer position, but I'm passionate about it because I want to help raise that endowment even higher. And so I'm going to get involved with that and support this and support the president of the Mile High Church Foundation Board and Dr. Michelle and Reverend Josh and Mile High Church leadership in any way that I can. All right, so you can be a part of this. You can get involved. Now, I do want to pause and say here that the most important funding priority of Mile High Church is the general fund, because that's what pays the operating costs of our beloved community. And Erica and I are delighted to be tithing members to the general fund of this church. And it's nice to know there's a way that we can leave a legacy. There's a way that we can contribute to the long-term savings account, as it were, of Mile High Church, and to know that it will support this church's ongoingness for generations to come. So there's been a slide up, and it'll be up again, I'm sure, at some point, listing the website for the foundation, milehighchurchfoundation.org. You can go there, you can get some more information. There are some forms you can fill out if you'd like to be involved, or if you'd like somebody to talk to you about how you can structure gifts into the future. I may even call you for all that matters. All right, so thank you for that. Thank you for caring about our greater yet to be. All right, now you can start the clock on my message. All right. My talk today is entitled From Has Been to Shall Be. Life is ever changing, evolving, growing, and this is natural. It's the way of things. And we are best advised to be in the flow of that. But it is kind of interesting to look back and think about how things were at particular times and how they've evolved to now. I've thought about the 50s, 60s, 70s and how things were then, how they've changed now. Back then, it was all about long hair. And for many now, it's longing for hair. Back then, it was about keg. Now for some, it's about EKG instead of that. For some back then, it was about acid rock. Too often now, it's about acid reflux. Back then, it was often about the Rolling Stones. And for some, sadly enough, it's about kidney stones. Now, back then, a common phrase was whatever. And now it's often depends. So, things do change and evolve. And so whenever we cling too fiercely to yesterday, we set up struggle and pain for today, and we block the possibilities that are available for our tomorrows. So I want initially to ask you, what is your relationship to your yesterdays? Is it evolving or is it stagnant? Is it productive or is it constrictive? Now, it's wonderful to look into our past and cherish memories. That's a beautiful thing. Even more powerful is to look into our past and learn from it and allow it to evolve us. But we don't want to hang out too long in that territory because life is calling us to our creative possibilities in the now. The power in your life and mine is in the now. The now. Now, I want to share a couple of traps that we can fall into in terms of our relationship with the past. Traps of the past. The first one is what I call pine-overs. Pine-overs. And this is pining for a past that is over. It's over. Now, we all know people who, on various and almost any occasion, or when asked how they are, will revert back into their past. And I guess that's okay. But we're apt to hear things like, oh, it was so wonderful, it was so beautiful. Oh, for the good old days. You ever heard that? Well, here's the truth about that. The good old days weren't all that good. They weren't all that good. Whatever the good old days ever were, they had their own problems, their own challenges. And they also had their own opportunities and their own beauties. And my sense is that the very people who are pining over the good old days, when they were in those good old days, were wishing for days before that, for former days. Because that's a tendency I invite us to look at, the tendency to romanticize the past and villainize the present, or to condemn the present. And it concerned me a little that we fell into that last year. How many times did we see on social media, or maybe even speak ourselves, how terrible 2020 was? It's like we trashed it continually. And New Year's comes along and we celebrate. Thank God that year is over. But if you're a student of this teaching, what you know is that how you are, what you create yourself to be in relationship to what's going on, has everything to do with what that does for you and how much of a benefit or a detraction you are to what's going on. It was a difficult year, to be sure. And yet to make it wrong can shut us down. We and many of us exercise the capacity to wrap our arms around those who were afflicted, those who experienced loss of family, jobs, whatever the case. And we also have the opportunity to look at what is here for us. What's the gift here? How can we use this well? How can we use this well? Rather than trashing what was. It's an interesting phenomenon to default consistently to complaint. Because that's, in a way, agreeing with, if your lifestyle is constant complaint, it's agreeing with a low-level misery. It's just settling for a low-level misery in life and holding on to an idealized, glamorized sense of the past. And thus what that does is it ceases to make us powerful in the moment. And it allows us to avoid being a beneficial presence in the now. Pining over, wishing it were different or better, rather than embracing our capacities and possibilities in the now. Pining over what was, rather than creating what could be. A trap of the past. The second trap, the other trap, after pine-overs is do-overs. And that is consistently wishing we could go back and do it differently. Do it differently. And I tell you, what a trap that is. Now, I tell you, the only instance where do-overs is great is in golf. And I don't know what my game would be like if I didn't have an abundant array of mulligans. But here's the deal, there are no mulligans in the rest of life. The past, we ought to observe its name and let it be past. It's a treasure trove of insights, lessons, nice memories, and yet it's past. But there's a different thing when we're holding regret around the past. It's been said that regret is like chains of the past holding us down. And I know those who are so caught up in regret that they're paralyzed and they cripple their capacities now and their future opportunities. Wonderful minister Fulton Ausler, he said, we crucify ourselves between two thieves, regret for yesterday and fear of tomorrow. Now, dear ones, if you find yourself in a constant state of regret, understand this, that this is just a bad habit. And it's a bad habit of beating yourself up. But maybe people beat themselves up as a way to not have to take the risks to make change in their life. To take what they needed to learn through what they had experienced for themselves in the past and integrating it so that they show up differently and thus they can stretch outside comfort zones and create something new, bold, bigger, maybe even God-ordained within them. And so regret is a simple way to not have to do any of that. And so I just beat myself up and hang out in that sad space. Understand this, though, that life is now. Life is a now happening. And no matter what, you can't get around this. In this now moment, you are creating your tomorrow. You can't stop that. You can't choose not to. And if you're not doing that consciously and dynamically and with purpose and vision, then you're simply, in your regret or you're pining over the past, you're simply moving energies and frequencies of the past into play in the present and then in the future. And we wonder why we get so dissatisfied and frustrated that life doesn't grow and evolve. Maybe we need to make a pact that we're going to transform our relationship with the past and open up to new power. And that's what I want to move us into now. Instead of pining over and doing overs, there's a way to bring power to today and tomorrow. And the first one of those is give-overs. Yeah, no more pining over, no more do-overs, but give-overs. There comes a time when we realize we have the opportunity to say yes to the evolutionary impulse of our being. No person is a static, finished being. You are an evolving being. And so this is saying yes to the shall be within you. The acorn shall be the oak tree. The bulb shall be the tulip or the iris or the crocus. And the God seed in you and me shall be a unique expression of the divine love intelligence of the mind and heart of God. You are a divine idea, a child of God unfolding. And there comes that moment when we give over to that. We stop hanging out in a past that ought to be past. We quit hiding out in our lives. And we decide to give ourselves over, to say yes, to let ourselves be evolved, to let our lives change, to trust that we're safe, that even if we take risks and it doesn't turn out, we're going to have a soft landing in God. And so we give over to that God's seed. And we say, yes, take me forward. I'm tired trying to stay stuck in life and hang out in the past. Take me forward. There's a little red rock stone thing sitting on my desk in my study. And it's inscribed with the words, take a deep breath of possibility. Right now, I invite you to do that right now. Take a deep breath and sense that you're taking a deep breath of possibility. Possibility that is woven into the fabric of who you are. And that all life wants us to do is give over to that. I've had to do that in the nearly 2 years since my retirement, or what I've always called my rewirement. It was troubling me that several years before that, I was getting the insight in meditation that after over 4 decades of a certain kind of ministerial service, it was time for change. Not just for change's sake, but as the further journey of my soul in this lifetime. And that troubled me deeply. But then finally, I gave over to that. And I said, yes. Did I know what was going to happen? No. When you give over, there are no guarantees. There's no roadmap that guarantees how things will be. But you know you got to agree with and stop fighting that which wants to be in you. And that's what I did. And for the first year, it was kind of going fallow. I decompressed, did some grieving, explored things in life. And then through that transition time, something shifted. About the time COVID happened, I felt new energies. And I felt, okay, now it's time to reinvent. Now it's time to find new ways to serve, to teach, to do whatever you're called to do. And one of those will be chairman of the Mile High Church Foundation and supporting its growth. And where that will continue to grow, I don't know, but I want to stay a yes to that. And if you want power for today and tomorrow, give over to a you that's bigger than you may consciously know. Give over to that shall be within you and say, all right, lead, kindly light, as it says in the Bible, lead thou me on. I'm ready to take my foot off the brake. I'm ready to let God have its way with me. Give-overs, far more powerful than pine-overs or do-overs. And then the second one is makeovers. Now, this isn't a superficial makeover, but there are times when it behooves us to take inventory of the lessons of the past that we might be able to shed the masquerades that we wear in this lifetime. Here we are, created in the image and after the nature and likeness of God, and we masquerade as victims. We masquerade as weak. We tell ourselves that we're not creative, we're not attractive, we can't change this, we can't change that. And we live a lie all too often. It's time for a spiritual makeover wherein we glean the lessons we set up for ourselves and life generously offers us on our journey, and we integrate those, but then we also explore, who am I when I stand in God's idea of me? What might be in that God seed? And how can I start showing up in a whole new way, showing up as a being of heart, showing up as a being of light, showing up as one who knows that no matter what's going on around me or in my life, I'm a creative opening for life. I participate in the creative intelligence and mind of God, and I can be the avenue through which revelation occurs, new understanding occurs, and I show up in compassion for the world. I don't speak badly about myself. Forget the beating up stuff. But I have the courage to change and to transform. To let go of the excuses and the alibis and the holdbacks. And to do a makeover that agrees with the light and the power of God in me. In Romans in the Bible it says, creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons and daughters of God. It's like all of creation is saying, when are you going to show up as the magnificent gods in miniature you're created to be? Not a bunch of power-hungry, greedy, insensitive, closed-hearted people just doing whatever you want to do for your own sake. It's like creation is saying, step forth as beings of light. You are a luminous light being, here to be a co-creator with God, not a victim or a dominator, a makeover. I know a lady, I love her dearly, she's a dear friend. Built up a big thing in her life, and then it all came crashing down. And a lot of people lost a lot of money. And advisors around her said, well, just declare bankruptcy, and then maybe you can start a new life. And she said, I will not. The same power that allowed me to create what I did will allow me to recreate it, and I will pay back. I'll make restitution. And she had a time of healing and transition, and she took over those lessons, and she learned what she needed to from that, and she stepped into a greater expression of her being. And by golly, this wonderful lady has recreated an even higher and greater thing than she had before, and repaid everything. And so life offers the opportunity to show up more and more truly according to that which we are. That's the spiritual makeover. So there's a give-over when we say yes, and then we start shaping ourselves to be transparent to the light of the divine truth within us. And then that leads us to the third one that's a key to today and tomorrow, and that's the takeover. Yeah, we give over, we make over, and then there's the takeover. Probably one of the greatest operatic tenors ever, Enrico Caruso, before an epic big performance. He was seen walking around backstage muttering to himself, "Little me move over, big me take over." That's what we get to do after giving over to this life, having remade ourselves and stepping out of all the lies we live. We get to say to life, take over. Let's go. Let's go for it. Let's start creating a new consciousness now that will plant the seeds for new creation in the days and the times to come. That's our capacity. It's always asking, who am I creating myself to be in response to what's going on? And how can I work with the powers that I am knowing of, the spiritual laws in this universe, to create what shall be? I've had the privilege of knowing lots of shall be people. And two came to mind this week. The first one I tell you about starts when he was 32 years old. This young man, a 32-year-old young man, stood on the shores of Lake Michigan with one particular intent. He was going to throw himself into it and commit suicide. Because some years earlier, his child had died. His 4-year-old child had died. And then more recently, his business enterprises had totally failed, and a lot of investors had lost a lot of money, some of them family. And on top of that, another child was now on the way. And he was penniless. He had no money to not only support that child, but he had no money to support himself and his wife. And he thought, if I just end it all, my family will step in and take care of my wife and child. So he stood there on those shores looking out at the waves and the pebbles and the rocks. And his mind kind of calmed. And then there was something that happened. And I believe that something can happen to any one of us when we're really ready. He had a transformational shift. A spiritual breakthrough. And a voice within him said, "Your life does not belong to you. Your life belongs to the universe." By the way, that voice is telling the same to each of us. Your life doesn't belong to you. Your life belongs to the universe. And as he had that stunning realization, a whole higher order of thought began to flood into his consciousness. And immediately he began to look at his past, the past he thought had doomed him, that made him unworthy of any more life. He looked at that past and he saw that it had lessons in it. He saw that it was building him to something. And he saw that there's a power, a higher power, always supporting him at every point in that journey. And as he got that realization, he made a covenant with himself and with this universal higher power. And the covenant was that he would, from that day on, endeavor to think for himself. Not just accept the broadcast of all the nonsense that's out there on the airwaves, but he would think for himself. And the second was that he would dedicate the rest of his life to dealing with the troubles that challenged the whole of humanity. And so he went forth. And he had such a shift that he opened up the genius capacity within himself. And over the next 56 years of his life, he would become known as a Renaissance man. So many inventions and such brilliance would pour out of this man who thought the best thing to do would be just to end it because of his past. And who am I speaking of? I'm speaking of Buckminster Fuller, affectionately known as Bucky Fuller, the great mathematician, cosmologist, inventor, architect, engineer, poet. An amazing man. Let me tell you that he received in his lifetime 25 U.S. patents, wrote 28 books. He envisioned the geodesic dome and many other breakthroughs. He was awarded honorary doctorates from 47 universities, along with scores of other awards. Einstein once said to him, "Young man, you amaze me." A Renaissance man, from almost demise to brilliance. You know, when I was an associate minister here at Mile High Church, with the blessings of Dr. Fred Vogt, the senior minister at that time, I created something called Dimensions of Mind Symposium. And they were annual one-day events. We did 8 of them, and we would bring in anywhere from 4 to 6 luminary speakers. I mean, the top of the tops, people, leading-edge social scientists, spiritual geniuses. The list of people we brought in is amazing. In our second Dimensions of Mind in 1980, we brought Bucky Fuller here. And I got to tell you, what a man. What a combination. He did a tremendous hour-long presentation. I even understood a part of it. He's such a brilliant genius. But yet he's an equally big heart. I remember at the end of that day, when I'm usually just totally flattened and exhausted, I felt energized, and I said, "Bucky, can I take you to dinner?" And he agreed. And we went to dinner, and at one point he reached into his briefcase. He said, "I'd like to give you a gift." And I said, "Really?" And he pulled out this book, which I guess he had just written. And interestingly, germane to today's topic, the title is, "And It Came to Pass, Not to Stay." And it came to pass not to stay. And I said, "Thank you." And I said, "But would you sign it?" And I said, "Oh, and I know sometimes when you sign books, you put little pictures in them for people." And he chuckled, and he wrote in it, and he said, "To Roger Teel in friendship, Buckminster Fuller, September 20th, 1980, Denver." Then he drew what looks like a geodesic pyramid out of that brilliant mind of his. And he said at the bottom, "And there is the picture." Now, I'm going to come back to Bucky in just a little bit, but I want to talk about a shall-be man, not a has-been man. He grew out of that has-been time and became an epic shall-be person. Another shall-be person that I cherished meeting was artist, singer-songwriter John Denver. In 1987, we had John here at Mile High Church. He spoke and he sang. He was promoting a conference in Aspen that he was creating. And we struck it off. We formed a friendship almost immediately. He called me the week after he appeared, and he asked me if I would officiate at his wedding to his second wife. And it just so happened serendipitously that Erica and I were getting married, and we planned our honeymoon for Aspen months earlier. And his wedding was scheduled to take place at the end of our honeymoon. And so we just stayed longer, and I officiated at that. And I remember that Eric and I went to the rehearsal dinner way up high in Snowmass. And afterward, he took the whole wedding party down to a club in Snowmass Village, a club he was part owner of. And while most of the wedding party was enthralled by a magician there in the club, John was just sitting kind of in the background. And there was a half wall, and he was sitting on the ledge of that half wall. And I just cozied up to him, just stood there and watched a while too. And then I said to him, "John, I've always been curious. I've always loved your music, and I noticed that there was a time in your career when you started singing about different things. You started singing about peace in the world. You started singing about our children. Oh, and then you started singing about our ecology, our wonderful world, and how it's up to us to take care of the mountains and the streams and the trees and nature." And I said, "That must have been a difficult decision to take in your career. It must not have been easy." And he smiled and he said, "Well, you know, something in me said that you can't stay on country roads, John. You got to go to higher paths." And I did. And yeah, it wasn't easy, but I couldn't have done otherwise. You know, what I later found out was that when I was speaking to him, he at the time was the highest selling recording artist in the history of recording. He had made millions and millions of dollars for RCA Records when his Sales dipped because his message shifted. They dropped him. And he created Windstar, his own label and his own organization. Now, a shall-be person takes whatever is dealt and makes something good out of it. A Bucky Fuller, a John Denver. John Denver loved shall-be people. He loved hanging out with Jacques Cousteau. And he loved Bucky Fuller. There's where they come together. He loved Bucky Fuller. And so a big, huge party was being thrown for Bucky Fuller at an auditorium to celebrate his 85th birthday. And John Denver was one of the headliners. And when it became his turn, he said, as a toast to Bucky Fuller, as a toast, I want to sing you a song that I wrote about him. It'll be on a future album. And so he started singing this song, and he began repeating the chorus, and the teary-eyed audience, very moved audience, started joining in singing the chorus. And I want you to hear the lyrics, because they talk about what a shall-be person is. What one man can do is dream. What one man can do is love. What one man can do is change the world and make it new again. Here you see what one man can do. And when he was done with that, he put his guitar down, went down the steps, kissed Bucky Fuller's bald head, and held him by the back of his neck and whispered, "I love you, Bucky." As I recount that, I realize that is an ode to shall-be people. They're the people who know that if you dream, and if you love, and if you're intent on using all that you are and all that you have to change the world, that's what one person can do. Any person can do. So today, I'm inviting you to release a dysfunctional past, if it's trapped you, chained you. And instead, I'm inviting you to give over to God's impulse within you. I'm inviting you to allow the shifting and changing and the remaking of you so that you are absolutely expressing the light and the truth and the magnificence of your spirit. And then you can say, take over life. Take me forward. I'm here as an instrument, as a vehicle for that greater idea to unfold by means of me. And in closing, I want to reprise those lyrics to include us all. What we all can do is dream. What we all can do, no matter what's going on, is love. What we all can do is change the world and make it new again. Here you see what we all can do. Let us be today people, forming tomorrow's transformed world. Join me in a prayer. O infinite Spirit of divine life, thank you for the inner nudge that we all need, reminding us, I created you to shine. I created you, precious, beloved, spirit child of mine, to partner with me in massive, beautiful, perfect new creations. I created you as a dynamic now being, learning from, then releasing the past and forming a glorious future. So give over to this. Trust. Trust the integrity and the possibilities of your being. Let go of the masquerades of lesser human thought. Accept your spiritual makeover, made in the image and after the nature of my light and my love, and together, let's take over. Sensing that reality, that truth of your being, I bless you this day, this now moment. I bless the creative, luminous light being you are, and I bless the newness that shows up as you let go of the lesser and the former and embrace the greater. And here we see what we all can do. And as we go forth to create new lives, new world, I bless us all. All that we need is already provided. And may we say yes. And so in gratitude for this truth that is making us truly free, we let it be so. Amen, ashe, and so it is.
Thank you for listening to the Mile High Church podcast. This podcast is made possible by the generous contributions from listeners like you. If you'd like to make a donation, please visit us at milehighchurch.org. Have a fabulous day.